Good evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you are, and welcome to the second ever LD Wrestling video podcast. How are we all doing? And we have our special guest, Matty Rose, Ragin Matty Rose with us.
Yeah.
From Skipton.
M. Rose from Skipton.
Yeah. So how are we both? You know, we're all doing well. Lockdown.
Yeah, very good, thank you.
Good man, good one. Stu, is that a new t-shirt I see you spotting there?
It is, mate. Yeah, do you want to see it? Hold on.
We certainly do.
It's a little... I'm not going any lower, you cheeky buggers. Little,
That's the premium video podcast we're releasing later in the year.
Yeah, that's my new Lost Donkey Wrestling t-shirt.
Happy days. Bit of merch.
That'll be a bit of merch. Where you sat this week?
I'm just chilling out on the Nitro set because no one's been using it for the last 19 years, so I thought I'd borrow it for tonight's show.
That's the old one as well, isn't it? The original one before they revamped it and got Megadeth to play in front of it and stuff.
Yeah,
oh, really?
Yeah, that's the one. Luckily, it was just kicking about in our new Twitter follower, Vince Russo's basement, and he said we could just borrow it for show. It's going to be.
Excellent.
Hi, Vince.
How are we doing, Vince? You all right?
Yeah, that's true. Shared that news with you, Matty, that we are actually followed on the Twitter by none other than Vince Russo himself.
Yeah, I heard it on the podcast last week, actually, because I've listened to every episode so far. So,
good man. Just checking. Just checking
I was very impressed with that high-profile following.
Yeah.
John Cena as well. Do you know who he is?
I have heard of John Cena. Yes, he's famous transcended wrestling.
Yeah, he's a modern day Raven, if you ask me. So
well,
we're a bit more.
Cena.
It's funny you should say that. I genuinely think, and I'd love Matty as a Raven fan to weigh on this. I think from Monday Night Raw this week, Seth Rollins' appearance, his demeanour and his actions, I think they're turning him into a Raven-esque character.
Ooh.
He's got a bit of a following. He's got the his own version of the flock going.
Was the Raven biblical, though? Because this seems a bit biblical to me, does Seth Rollins, with the whole Messiah and stuff.
Not biblical, but it's some famous author or poet, isn't it? I'm going to sound really uneducated now for not knowing it, but it's like super famous.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm blanking myself.
Sorry, and you.
Yeah, blanking. Oh, quote the Raven, nevermore. Yeah, it's a ridiculously famous American.
I'll Google it while we're on. We're not fussed. It's fine. We can keep talking.
Yeah, be fine.
Edgar Allan Poe.
Edgar Allan Poe, yeah. That's the man.
All right, well played, mate. That was without Google,
favorites.
wasn't it?
Yeah, I was about to Google it, and it suddenly came to my mind.
I can see, because you were on your phone, so well played.
Yeah.
Good man. But, so I know Seth's going for the more biblical approach, but I think there's still the same... I don't know. There's nothing official, obviously, but I just got that vibe of him. Yeah. It could just be because preparing for the show with Matty tonight, I'd been looking back on the Raven, got him on the brain, but...
New theme tune as well?
It just rang like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you, interestingly,
see what they're doing.
That strange match that they had, Matty might be interested in this as well. It got stopped for a DQ. And did you read the reasoning why, Batch?
I actually wrote an article on it on our website, Stu. Yeah, thanks.
On our website?
Yeah. Don't worry about it. I know you're not aware of
you read
what doesn't happen on social media.
Well, I was going to do it, and then I've seen you've done it. All right. Did you see it, though? There's this unwritten rule that Vince won't allow a tag team to be out of position if there's two of them attacking someone for more than 5 seconds or something.
Yeah, which has always been a thing on telly. So when a tag team, when one guy tags in the other, they basically double team for 5 seconds. They're allowed to, officially.
Right.
But the unwritten rule that Vince has been enforcing all these years and stopping people from getting around is the let me think of the right terminology for it, which I can't. The legal man cannot of one tag team cannot be attacked by the illegal member of the other team. So if you're not tagged in, if you're not the active, so if you and Matty are the tag team,
Yeah. What would
you're
you
in
be
the
called?
ring. What would you be called?
The Raging Beards.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, that works.
Maybe one raging beard and one budding beard.
The Raging and the Buddha.
Yeah.
So I'm fighting you.
So yeah, you're the legal man. Matt is on the ring waiting for a tag. If you tag him in, you two for 5 seconds can both be in the ring, both be active. Then you've got to get out. If you then lay a hand on me and you're outside, you're the illegal man outside the ring, Matt is the legal man, then that's the DQ because you're not the legal man.
I've never known that, ever.
No, because they've always stuck to it.
Really?
That's the argument. So the argument was that up to now, there's been loads of angles, there's been loads of spots in matches that they've had to not use and nix because of this rule of Vince's.
Right.
So the only thing where it becomes a grey area for me is whenever someone's been pinned in a tag match, the other guy always jumps in, kicks him in the back of the head, and breaks up. So apparently they've let that go.
And the thing that annoys me with that is it instantly stops the pin, whether they've even if the shoulders are still down.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Anyway,
so they've also let that go, but allegedly, if the referee sees the non-legal tag member touch the legal tag member of the other team, it's a disqualification.
Right.
And that's Vince's rule. Something else I wanted to actually touch on, and I'm sorry, Matty, this is probably not what you're here for, but
it's an interesting experience
the other thing that
when you've done it, any of the people involved.
Now you know what I feel like with 90s wrestling.
Yeah. So, two people you probably will know, Edge and Randy Orton. Yeah. So their segment at the end of Raw this week massively stood out to me for two reasons. One, it was really good. I think it's probably the best promo I've seen in a long time. Two, because twice during his promo, Randy Orton referred to them having a wrestling match and them as being wrestlers.
Right. And
And that really shocked me because another one of Vince's unwritten rules that has been upheld for years now is no one calls himself a wrestler. They're all superstars or performers.
Entertainers.
No one's a wrestler. Vince hates the term wrestling. There's a famous story going back to WCW that when Ted Turner bought WCW, he allegedly rang Vince and said, "Hey, Vince, guess what? I'm in the wrestling business." And Vince turned around to him and said, "Good for you. I'm in the entertainment business." Because he never classed himself as being in wrestling. So the fact that they used that term on Raw, on telly, it must have had Vince's blessing because I can't remember the ring announcer's name, Charlie Caruso, who was doing the interview, she then said, "I can't wait for that wrestling match." And I was just, it's a little thing, but it's something that they've not acknowledged on WWE television for a long time. And it just surprised me. It shocked me that.
Can I just ask then, what does WWE stand for?
World Wrestling Entertainment.
So this is I've had a question to ask. I've had a question to ask you since we started this radio show and podcast. I've never looked into it deliberately. Who decided that the WWF was going to be claimed by the Pandas? Was it them, or was it that Vince wasn't a wrestling company?
It was a massive own goal by Vince McMahon.
Right.
So,
are you interested in this, Mike? Because I am.
I am, yes.
So this might not be the truth, but this is the story I've heard and heard several times from different people. was back in the early 2000s, Vince wanted to trademark officially WWF.
Right.
But obviously, the Pandas use it. So he decided he was going to sue them for copyright infringement so he could claim the trademark for himself.
Right.
Went to court, failed.
So he sued an organisation that helps animals.
Yes.
Right. Right.
Because
Good
they're
old Vinnie Mac.
using his trademark. He wanted it all to himself.
Right.
And he lost.
Course
So
he did.
therefore, they got the trademark and he had to stop using it.
So
So as
if
far
he hadn't
as
have done
own
it,
goals go,
yeah.
if he'd have kept his mouth shut, no one else would have cared. There'd still be WWF right now.
Right.
But he went full Vince McMahon and owned it, claimed that it's his decision. But I was just going to say that when Matty pointed out that he's still World Wrestling Entertainment, when he had to drop the F and replace it with an E, he said at the time if he could have dropped the word wrestling as well, he would have done.
Really?
But they felt it would have been too different, far too different from their brand to change it from WWF to whatever he was going to call
WE.
it. Yeah.
I always wondered if it was because they weren't, like the real pro wrestling companies were saying, look, you can't call yourself the World Wrestling Federation because you're not wrestlers. You're an entertainment. Right, okay. All Vince's fault then.
No, it was purely an own goal. And Vince takes credit because he's king of the company, but it could have been someone from their legal team. But whoever within WWF at the time made the decision, let's go sue a charity.
Brilliant.
Their fault.
Brilliant. Right then, slight digression before we got stuck in Ragin Matty Rose.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully most people have been listening to the radio show before they've switched out the podcast and have heard us talking about the late 90s WCW and all the delights that Matty remembers from back then, which we can all agree is a bit of a golden era. That's right in the middle of the Attitude Era.
All right.
Right in the middle of the Monday Night Wars.
Yeah.
I'd say wrestling's peak.
Matty's gone a bit Blair Witch there. Oh, here we go.
Yes, it's scaring me a little bit.
Especially with that haircut. You look hard as nails. Like harder as nails, should I say.
I'm very tough. Yeah, harder than nails, the wrestler.
Keep that temper under control and the rage.
I'm keeping
nails the wrestler, what man?
Yeah, just be careful, Stu. You're walking the tightrope there.
I know. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, we're trying to keep his rage levels down.
I'm sorry.
So we were talking at the end of the radio show with Matty about music in wrestling and what a massive influence it was to all of us. I think we can all say we resonated more. We attached ourselves to wrestling more and the wrestlers with music that we could relate to as well. It made it more accessible. Something else that was a bit of a phenomenon in the late 90s that died because Vince doesn't like them is the factions. WCW at the time, I'd hate to try and guess how many different factions there were, but are there any that jump out at you, Matty, that you remember from back then and why?
After the success of the NWO, clearly, then they splintered off into the red and black NWO and the black and white as well, didn't they? And then they added the Latino World Order as well, the LWO, which is quite comical. It's meant to be quite serious, but it's more comical the fact that they found another variant of the NWO. But even Raven's Flock as well was a bit of a faction. Four Horsemen, raised the ugly heads again.
How dare you? But yes, they did. And I think you've hit the nail on the head there that it was on the back of NWO's success and conversely on WWF television, DX's success. It was like everyone in wrestling decided, oh, you know what? I've got to be in a group. We've got to have a faction here to try and get over. That's what we need. And I think at the time, if you NWO was huge, I think half the roster was an NWO wrestler.
Right.
Is there anyone who stood out for you as being like massively important within the NWO or any of those other factions that seemed to pop up out of nowhere at the time?
Yeah, well, the one that really jumps out at me, no pun intended, is Eddie Guerrero with his frog splash, because he was like the leader of the LWO, wasn't he? The Latino World Order was very prominent in that.
And I always thought that had legs. The Latino World Order.
Frog's legs.
There were some really talented guys in there. Hey, there we go. There's some really talented guys in there, and it just felt to me like they could have done a lot more with them if they just believed in them, but they seem to use them as a bit of a joke, from my memory anyway, bit of a joke faction for the NWO to beat up on.
And perhaps if there's more variety as well, because not to generalise, but they were generally these cruiserweights as well, when they weren't really any big brawlers who could really go toe-to-toe with like the main eventers, so they couldn't really get involved in that area of the card.
No, that's true. They were all really smaller guys. I'm just looking at the list of people in there, and you had Eddie Guerrero leading it, Rey Mysterio, Juventud Guerrero, Psychosis, Leparca, El Dandy, Silver King. Basically, no one above 6 foot, and all great high flyers. But as you say, there wasn't really the muscle there. And especially when you consider they were going up against the NWO, who really were the land of giants, it kind of makes it a little bit less believable.
It limits what you can do with them, doesn't it, other than stick them in the ring with someone twice the size and watch them get thrown about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is good at first, but it wore thin.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's entertaining to start with, and then after a while you kind of, it loses its charm. I mean, the NWO at the time, I'm just trying to see who would be in there. So in '98, as you said, they split at that point into the red and black Wolfpack and the white and black Hollywood, led by Kevin Nash and Hollywood Hogan, respectively. But there must have been 20 guys just in the NWO.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever heard this, but at the time, the plan was believed to be that the NWO was going to split off as a completely separate brand and have their own show. That was the idea. That's why. Yeah, that's why they became such a bloated faction.
Fight each other.
Yeah, and that's what they were doing. So the NWO got so big that they split into the red and black Wolfpack, which Kevin Nash led up, and the white and black NWO Hollywood, which Hulk Hogan led.
No, Hollywood
and they were feuding against each. That's right. Sorry, yeah, Hollywood Hogan, and they were feuding against each other. And the idea was more people would get added to both factions, and they'd just go off and have their own show, their own pay-per-views, which would just be NWO.
Right.
Which I kind of like the idea of, if I'm honest. But
yeah, is that similar to what happened with WWF when they split into Raw and SmackDown then?
Yeah, exactly. This was an early idea of a brand extension. So yeah, as you say, WWE now, they've got Raw and SmackDown, and both have their own, well, they should have their own distinguished roster, and you shouldn't see the same person on both shows. But this looks like Bischoff had the idea 20 years earlier.
As he often says he does.
Yeah, that's it. I'm sure if you asked him, he'll definitely claim he did. But yeah, there was crazy. I just remember WCW at this time, when you tuned in, every single person came out as part of a group. There wasn't just a single star.
The one that stands out for me, actually, just to contradict him, that like DDP was really a high profile. It was always, is he going to join Red and Black. I remember always wanting him to join the Wolf Pack because they were the good guys at the time, and he never did. And he was the only one I can think of who just remained independent.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah, DDP and I think Goldberg, actually. I don't think he ever joined.
Oh, that's true, actually. Yeah. Okay, so we've got two straight away.
We've got two. Yeah. But they were always seen as though they were the WCW guys fighting for justice against these horrible NWO guys. So I don't know. It kind of got over the top. I really like the factions in wrestling. But I think WCW at the time had done it to death. There were just too many. Because it was hard to follow who was who and people jumping around between. You lost interest.
They were constantly chasing that dragon of the success of the NWO, weren't they? And that's why they kept bringing it back as well. And I believe did they start bringing it back in TNA or something? I kind of picked up on the something like that.
They did. They in TNA they had they called themselves the band. They called themselves, which was Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and Sean Waltman, or 1, 2, 3 Kid for Stu.
Thank you.
Which was obviously a reference to the NWO, all them being members. And I think on a similar vein in TNA, they had the Main Event Mafia, which had a lot of them guys, Kurt Angle, AJ Styles, who were, I guess, a bit more open. So NWO at the time in WCW basically controlled the show. What they said went. At one point, Kevin Nash was actually booking the shows as well. So they ran the show. The Main Event Mafia in TNA didn't control it to the same extent, but they were a faction that acted like they did. All the top stars were in this one faction, and they claimed that you could only get over if you were in with them. But it's quite interesting for me, all these, because you had the Clique backstage, which is quite famous now, but as a wrestling fan back then in the 90s, I had no idea this existed. I'm not sure if you'd have. So are you aware of what the Clique is, Matty?
I've heard about it, that backstage there were sort of the people who had more say in how things went, and basically it's who you know, really, as to how far you go on the show.
That's it. And at this point in time, especially, there is an actual group known as the Clique, which was Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Sean Waltman, Kevin Nash, and Scott Hall, who were all a group of best friends, travelled together. And obviously at this point in time, you had two of them as top guys in WCW and the other two as top guys in WWF. So they effectively had the monopoly on pro wrestling, this small group of friends.
So they actually made a not a joke, but they made light of this group of people that were known as the Clique, because we know a Clique's not usually a term of endearment. And then actually, I guess, similar to making Scott Hall's alcohol troubles into a storyline, it's like, it's probably going to rile a few people up. Yeah.
It's owning it, isn't it? It's taking something negative and saying, you know what, I'm going to be proud of it. I'm not going to be ashamed of this.
This all sounds like when me and Matty were in a band together. All this politics and changing of names and
yeah. Were you in the Clique or out of it then?
Well, I don't know. I thought I was in it.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Nice. So, going back to WCW at the time, how aware were you as a fan? Because I remember back then, we were lucky enough to have Sky Sports, and on a Friday night, we could watch Monday Night Raw and Monday Nitro. But how ridiculous it was for me that they were both on at the same time on a Friday night. So even though we had all week to put them on and they could have scheduled them at different times, in the UK, they still made the decision, you know what, we're going to run these two shows against each other. How aware were you of what was happening on WWF at the time? Or did you were you oblivious to it?
I'd say I probably caught about 1 in 4 episodes of Raw at the time. I think this was sort of pre-SmackDown, or maybe SmackDown came into it around about that time. Some guys up the road from me were lucky enough to have Sky Sports, so I remember I used to watch the WCW on a Friday, then go up to their house on a Saturday, and they'd always watched Raw already. I was going to say live, but as it was broadcast on Sky a week later. And then if I was lucky, they'd have recorded it and we could watch some of it again, or they might have the pay-per-view recorded that they got on Sky Box Office. So I did see bits of it, and I also randomly had this guy in my class at school who is like the only one who had the internet in the class. And after everything had been on in America on a Monday, he wouldn't tell me any spoilers, but he'd basically telling me the Nielsen ratings every week randomly, so he'd come and sort of show off that WWF were doing better because he watched WWF and I watched WCW. So that's kind of how aware of things I was. Like, weirdly, I was well into the Nielsen ratings because I had this guy telling me every week about them, and then I just caught bits of the actual storyline.
Love it. They're making a comeback, them Nielsen ratings, We've got the Wednesday Night Wars now, and people are obsessed with them, but to be quite honest,
much smaller numbers now.
Exactly, yeah. Because, who watches TV live these days? It's all recorded.
Exactly. Yeah, I certainly don't.
But, a big part for me, the difference between wrestling now and wrestling then is the internet. As you said there, you had one guy in your class that had the internet. I don't think anyone, I don't think I knew anyone in the 90s with the internet. I remember my uncle getting it in the late 90s, but he certainly wasn't letting me look up wrestling spoilers on there. So you didn't know. If you didn't watch the shows, you had no idea what was going on. And I think it was a much better experience for that. I think the internet, which we're a part of now, apparently, has ruined wrestling.
Definitely. Even the fact that we're here talking about this now and all the stuff that goes on backstage, like listening to you guys talk about, there's these contract issues going on with certain wrestlers at the moment, and I just had no idea about that stuff watching it in the 90s. I'll just be tuning in one week and suddenly, Ravens, I haven't seen Raven for a few weeks, where's he gone? And it's only like 20 years later I found out he'd apparently been in some meeting with all the wrestlers where Eric Bischoff had said if anyone wants out of the contract, just get up and go, and he got up and went, expected loads of people to follow him, but he was the only one.
My kind of guy.
And that's it, never saw him again. So at the time I was like, where's my favourite wrestler gone? I just keep hoping he's going to come out every week, and he didn't. Whereas of course now you know straight away, something's gone up with his contract, he's signed for this place.
They wouldn't address it either, would they? Like on a football show or whatever, if someone transferred from one club to another, they'd tell you, but
But then he did get those huge pops when people would join a different promotion, because it would be quite secretive. Someone would just run in unexpectedly because he didn't know what had happened behind the scenes.
Absolutely. And this happened a little bit before you got into wrestling, but the formation of the NWO and the start of Monday Nitro was just like that. Everything was a buzz and a shock, and you didn't know what to believe. So Scott Hall just randomly appeared in the middle of a Nitro taping in the middle of 96. He just walked in through the crowd in the background of the match. And allegedly, they hadn't even told the wrestlers who were fighting in the ring what was going on. So he just walked out, stepped over the guardrail, stepped in the ring, and cut a promo. And everyone just sort of backed off, like, what on earth is going on? And because they hadn't told the wrestlers and the announcers, everyone's reaction was so authentic and real, people genuinely thought that Scott Hall had been sent down to WCW by WWF to invade them. And there was no internet just to look up and say, no, it's just a storyline, don't worry about it. You believed it.
Yeah. There's no leaked information before it happened either.
No, absolutely. And like the first episode of Monday Nitro, in the Mall of America. Lex Luger effectively did the same. He'd appeared at a WWF house show the night before, and then on Monday night, live, the biggest show in WCW, he's there. And he was a huge, huge WWF star. And they'd apparently innocently let his contract slip by accident. So it was as much of a shock to Vince McMahon sat at home watching as anyone else. But you don't get that now because, as you say, all the information is fed to us. We know that the Revival's contract ran out and they're going to jump to do AEW. It's happening. It's obvious. So you don't get that same buzz and excitement as you did. And it's a shame because I do miss that. You touched it on the radio show. You genuinely didn't know from one week to the next what was going to happen. It felt like anarchy. It felt like anything could and often did happen.
What a time to be alive! But I'd also
really
like
was.
to touch on the drawbacks of that as well, if you don't mind, being a WCW fan, trying to follow what was going on there. Of course, they spend all the Nitros and Thunders building up to the pay-per-views. Then you couldn't watch the things in England. So they weren't on TV and there's no internet to find out what happened. So you just have to try and piece it together from the next episode of Monday Nitro, which was then on the Friday, which is like a week after the pay-per-view happened. Very frustrating at the time.
Oh, definitely. I think you used to be able to get a bootleg copy of the VHS tape about 6 months later.
Oh, I didn't move in those circles, unfortunately. So I remember there was one episode of Nitro. I think there was a Halloween Havoc with a match with possibly Sting and DDP. That there'd been some balls up with the. Can I say balls on the podcast?
You just did. Yeah.
Say whatever.
Balls up with the broadcast of it in America, and so they had to re-show the whole of that match on Monday Nitro instead, and I was the happiest man in England at that point because I finally got to see a match from WCW pay-per-view.
I remember that. That was great. It was all the matches in the pay-per-view building up to that had overrun, so they ran out of time for the main event. I mean, can you imagine that happening now?
No.
So especially back then, there was no network. You've paid $30 or however much it was in Britain at the time, for a pay-per-view for the main event of DDP and whoever it was. And that match never happens. It just the show just ends after the match before. And then, as Matty says, Nitro the next night, they had that match.
Right. For free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolute insanity. Do you remember them giving out the spoilers for Raw on Nitro?
I've heard about it since then. It was slightly before my time, but I've watched a few documentaries and read Bischoff's biography and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I do have fond memories of that because obviously
I hadn't heard about that.
Do you want to explain, Matty, or should I?
Yeah, it was like the heat of the Monday night was wanted, and what WCW were doing, where Bischoff would announce, during Nitro, he would announce what was going to happen on Raw because they were both being broadcast at the same time. So then people didn't need to watch Raw, they'd just watch Nitro, which is quite devious, I suppose. But
so he'd know what. Was this after it had happened then, or did he know what they were planning?
So Raw at the time was pre-recorded.
Okay, right.
So yeah, he knew everything that was happening in that show. So at the start of Monday Nitro, he'd say, "No need to switch over to Raw. This, and this is going to happen. So you may as well stick here and watch some live action."
Brilliant.
What
did you say back? Yeah, horrible, man. Did that? Did you say that backfired on him?
Yeah, it massively backfired on him. And I think it was right around. It was blamed for when the end of the 83-week run. So I can't remember the date, but basically some point in '98, Mankind defeated The Rock on Raw for the WWF heavyweight title.
Right.
And right before that match was due to go on, Vince Russo, it wasn't Vince, I can't remember, it was one of the other announcers. It could have actually been Tony Schiavone, said live on Nitro, don't bother switching over to Raw.
Just say that again, you broke up a bit for me, I don't know.
So Tony Schiavone, at the time, on Nitro, said to everyone watching, saying, don't bother switching over to Raw, there's no need. Mankind is going to beat The Rock for the WF title, and made some snide comment like, yeah, because that'll put people that'll hook viewers in. And I think the Nielsen ratings showed about 500,000 people switched over immediately to Raw. Because they wanted to see that, and it never recovered.
Well, there you go. He got his just desserts.
Yes, all's well that ends well.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's but yeah, there's loads of underhand things. I mean, Raw at the time used to have a puppet character called Billionaire Ted, who was just mocking Ted Turner as a character on the show. They also had a guy called Gilberg, who, to be nice about him, was a skinny old guy who looked nothing like Bill Goldberg, but they dressed him in Bill Goldberg get-up. He came out to two people waving sparklers next to him instead of the Goldberg pyro, and he just got murdered every week. But just as a pure mockery to Goldberg, it was.
Didn't he enter the Rumble?
Mental, really.
Past few years.
Possibly, I can't remember the last time he appeared. But it was insane. Some of the underhand things that went on during that era. And to be honest, I loved it.
Yeah. Business is business, right?
Absolutely. So we touched on the radio show of some of your earliest memories watching wrestling, Matty. What would you say is some of your latest memories? What did you watch before you grew up or gave up on wrestling?
I was kind of had my hand forced into giving up, really. I was still proper hooked, even through all the troubled times in WCW when it was getting more and more ridiculous with, DDP tag partnering with Jay Leno and stuff like that. Then, I was still like waiting for it every week, and that was the highlight of my week. Every week, still tuning into WCW. But it was around that time where Sky Digital started coming out, and I'd already kind of scoped out what channels were available on Sky Digital, and I couldn't see a space for WCW because they had Cartoon Network 24 hours, and they had Turner Classic Movies 24 hours, and so I knew that if we upgraded from our Sky analog dish to Sky Digital, I wouldn't be able to watch my beloved WCW anymore. So I was trying to convince my parents for as long as I could not to to hang on to the Sky analog.
Probably one of the only kids that would be saying, "No, don't get Sky."
But then one day, eventually, we upgraded to Sky Digital, and that was it. I couldn't watch WCW anymore, and I don't remember exactly what that point was. I remember fairly near the end, there was some Nitro event that they had, surrounded by a swimming pool at some point, which is a bit crazy.
Right.
Is that too vague?
I mean, I'll believe you.
To know that.
I do think I've got a vague recollection of it was at a hotel somewhere in Fort Lauderdale or something.
Yeah.
And they just had the ring next to the swimming pool, and it basically they couldn't draw a crowd anymore, so they were holding it at weirder and weirder venues.
See, I didn't know that was going on. I just thought they were showing off by booking it in a hotel, because I was still just believing everything that was being fed to me, WCW is still successful, they can rent a hotel.
Yeah, and that's obviously the image they wanted to portray, but I think towards the end of the 90s and start of the 2000s, they were effectively giving tickets away on the street to try and fill the stadium so that it looked better. But obviously, in doing that, they were getting people who didn't have a clue what was going on, so they weren't reacting. They didn't get the atmosphere was lost a little bit.
So it's kind of gone full circle then, if I can get a bit philosophical there. When wasn't Bischoff doing that at the start when he moved them to Disney, and he was just getting patrons of the Disney studios to fill the seats to watch the matches and tape it?
There we go. Absolutely, yeah. They ran out. The Disney's, I can't remember what they called it now, but yeah, the Disney Studios at one of the theme parks, and as part of your ticket to get into the theme park, you could also just chip off and watch WCW being filmed.
So there you go.
So they weren't actually
full circle, then, hasn't it? It kind of finished how it started.
It did, yeah. That's it. It's quite a poetic finish to it all, really. And a shame as well, because they had a lot of talent there. That, I mean, do you remember anyone from WCW who maybe in that area you saw and thought, oh, they're going to be huge, or you were a fan of? I mean, I know you said you're really into Raven and the Flock, but was there anyone else outside of the big names that you were a fan of that you thought he was going to be something, never panned out?
I'd say it's pretty much all of the mid-card, really, because there was so much potential there, and then obviously they could never break into the boys' club at the top of all the old dudes who get wheeled out for the main events. And so, like you've talked about Benoit before, he just about got there when he joined the Four Horsemen, didn't he? Booker T at that time was just incredible. Dean Malenko, Chris Jericho as well, like great wrestling, just fantastic entertainment as well, even in those early days. Like we mentioned lampooning Bill Goldberg earlier with Gilbert, but then of course Jericho did that himself as well when he had his he was like spoofing Goldberg's entrance to the ring for a bit. He was trying to start a feud with Goldberg basically, and Goldberg just wouldn't even acknowledge him.
He didn't buy it.
He was coming out every week with his own security guard, because Goldberg would be escorted to the ring by this group of security guards. It was all mysterious. And Jericho had his own security guard, Ralphus, which is just this large dude who he came across as being quite simple. Actually, if you listen to Jericho's podcast, I've listened to one episode of Jericho's podcast where he tells the story really, really well, and basically puts on this great voice for Ralphus as well. And how he talks about how it's basically just this. He was one of the crew in one of the towns they were playing in or something. He just got to do it for one time, and they paid him like a few dollars to do it. And he just kept showing up to other venues, saying, I'm going to be on TV again this week. So he kept having to be on until eventually they had the heart to tell him no. But yeah, hilarious. Chris Jericho mocking Goldberg, and Goldberg did his big entrance to the ring where security knock on his dressing room door.
Well, they still do that, don't they? On Raw.
Serious. Do they still do that? Chris Jericho's version, of course, he'd get Ralphus to knock on the door for him, and then he'd be making his way to the ring through the backstage, but it would just take forever. He'd be getting lost. He'd end up opening the door and he was outside, then he'd have to come back in again. And it just basically, he was getting frustrated because he can't find his way to the ring. And
brilliant.
He went full Spinal Tap on
television to watch, yeah.
And the thing is, Jericho's not stupid. There'll have been reasons for doing that, not just to get the feud going. He knew that'd get him.
From what I understand, he was just trying so hard to further his career, and he just wasn't able to get anywhere because of the way WCW was structured. And you had like your Hogans and Randy Savage and whoever at the top who were just never going to be.
I think you'll find someone coined the phrase "the hypocrisy of Jericho" in the last 6 months or so, and that was me, because he's. I mean, it's not, but with AEW, he was the first one to get the belt and hold it for quite some time. And we likened it to him saying that the younger guys couldn't get the belts off the older guys, but the difference there was he was creating some legitimacy to the new brand. So, but yeah, I get that. He was trying everything he could, wanting to get noticed. So back then.
Did you know as well?
Sorry. I was just going to ask you, Batch, did you have any names to add to that illustrious list of mid-carders who never quite got the fair shot.
No, I think you've pretty much nailed it there. I was also a massive fan of Billy Kidman, who we mentioned before.
Yes.
Him and Mysterio, every time they were in the ring, whoever they were facing, put on great matches and really entertaining. But as you say, they couldn't move up the card. They seemed to hit that glass ceiling. And I think, again, Jericho has touched on this in his podcast and stuff, and his book as well, which was, if you're in the WCW light heavyweight division, they'd never let you out. So you could only ever wrestle in the light heavyweight division, and anyone from that division couldn't legitimately get over against someone in the heavyweights. So it was almost seen as embarrassing for anyone like Macho Man or Hogan or Hall or Nash to lose to anyone like Jericho because they were light heavyweight. You know, they don't face me. And it just seemed to be, again, an issue within that company that they couldn't take the talent seriously. They sort of pigeonhole people and wouldn't let them move out of their boxes. But yeah, Billy Kidman was one that always struck out for me because I was a huge fan of his work. Always entertaining to watch and just never really got over, never really progressed. And another one that people disagree with because he was the multiple time champion was the Giant, Paul White, who obviously became Big Show. For me, although he had some success in WCW, they only let him have success to further either Kevin Nash or Hulk Hogan's career. So they'd let him go on a big run, dominating people and absolutely making him look unbeatable, making him look like an absolute monster, just to then get beaten by one of them. And it gets them over more. It makes them look like the conquering hero because he managed to beat this giant, rather than actually letting him have success on his own. And again, he's touched on it since joining WWE or WWF at the time. He said basically he didn't learn anything WCW. No one taught him or tried to help him. He came in as just this big, dumb giant and left the same way. Whereas when he got to WWF, The Undertaker and Stone Cold both kind of took him under the wing and taught him how to be better. And he was awesome and still is. But yeah, he was another one that I just because of the size of him and clearly his athletic ability, I always thought could have been awesome, but they never seemed to do it with.
Yeah, it was always very exciting when he came out, and you always waited for him to do his choke slam, and yeah, very exciting to watch. And he's another one who I remember just disappearing one day, and it suddenly dawned on me, not seen Giant for a while, and then it was just by chance one week I had seen an episode of Raw at my mate's house, and like, oh, I guess he's not coming back, is he? I was really sad then.
No.
Heartbroken.
Yeah. Were you watching when they brought the Ultimate Warrior in?
Yeah, I was.
WCW?
Yeah, I remember that. And again, it's sort of another example of bringing in a big name and an old guy who doesn't necessarily have the moves. Not to say they were all bad. Yeah, they could still work a crowd, but just a very underwhelming sort of payoff after a lot of build up to him like appearing in the rafters and stuff like that, and he just never seemed to do anything.
What kind of age was he then? Was he after
about
his
100?
Yeah, about 100. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was after his WWF time.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think he would be as old as you'd think.
No.
Probably late 30s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah. But so, yeah, what you've got to remember, and if you look back at his career in WWF, I know we just said it about Goldberg now, he never had a match more than 5 minutes.
No. Well, he didn't have energy after them running to the ring.
That's it. 2 minutes of that match was him running to the ring.
Yeah.
of that 5 minutes. But in WCW, they brought him in. The promos I thought were awesome. Matty's just said that they had him in the rafters. Do you remember the mirror thing that they did with Hogan?
Yeah, that was really freaky. Hogan's like proper freaking out.
Yeah, brilliant. So they had Hogan, obviously gimmicked, looking in a mirror and seeing the Ultimate Warrior, and Eric Bischoff stood near him and can't see Warrior.
Right.
That's what.
And is this before he'd been announced on the show, or during?
No, they'd sort of the crowd. They'd let the crowd in, so the audience knew and had seen him. But the idea was that no one else in WCW knew he was there.
Right.
So yeah, you just had Hogan freaking out that the Warrior's haunting him. But then the payoff was like a 30-minute match at one of the pay-per-views.
Right.
Hogan's never been capable of doing a 30-minute match.
No.
Neither's Warrior. And at this point, like I said, Hogan's probably pushing 50. Warrior's pushing 40. And it was just awful. I seem to remember they did something like the flash paper, like trying to shoot fire at each other or something.
Oh, is it that one? I've seen bits of that when it just goes wrong, doesn't it?
Yeah, you can't use the term highlights. There were no highlights.
Sorry, I've seen it. It must have been on like when wrestling goes wrong or something like that, and Hogan just proper messes up. Nearly sets himself on fire. So he called himself Hollywood Hogan. Was that after his Hollywood, or did he have to call himself that because of copyrights and things?
No, I think he just after his Hollywood run.
Yeah,
I think he was
Hogan at first in WCW, wasn't he? And then his big heel turn was becoming Hollywood Hogan instead of Hulk. And then he eventually came back to Hulk for a little bit at the end when they were really desperate to squeeze some more life out of the company.
Okay, so it wasn't that he couldn't do it, right?
No. I think he owns and still does own the trademark for Hulk Hogan. It was the fact that he didn't want to use Hulk Hogan as a heel character, so he was Hollywood when he was heel.
Right.
And what a heel as well, I have to say. Like, he did that fantastically. I know I was just sort of saying he didn't have many moves, but I've got so much respect for how he could work a crowd so well without having the moves.
Yeah.
I was totally drawn into his matches, even though, like, basically he can do a scoop slam and a leg drop. But I'd be so engaged. And
the punches. He can hulk up and do the punches.
Yeah. And of course the hulking up was the best bit.
Absolutely. But I always feel sorry for Hulk Hogan, and he's a victim of his own success. Because if you go back and watch some of his matches in the 80s, and even the early 80s, he actually was a very good and athletic wrestler. He could put on some really good matches, but he just, as he got older, and I think he's had something like 18 back surgeries, and he's on his fifth or sixth hip. He's on his fifth or sixth hip, and his knees have been done, and he's basically the Bionic Man. He has limited himself more and more.
Yeah,
in his moveset. So now, all anyone remembers is, as you say, the punches, the power slam, and the leg drop. That's it. But realistically, he was actually quite a good wrestler. But you don't remember that now. Because
he's so passionate about it as well, because I remember seeing this little half-hour documentary. This is before his fall from grace and he became a massive racist and stuff like that. When he was sort of trying to make a comeback in TNA, but then it was showing you behind the scenes where he's going to the doctor and the doctor's telling him basically your knees are gone, you can't do anything, and he wants to so bad. He's got that passion for it, and he just physically can't. He's trapped in this body that won't let him do the thing he's most passionate about.
Ric Flair would get in ring again tomorrow. It seems like they struggle. Yeah, seems like they struggle more than like footballers that I've seen. They just cannot say stop. They can't get it out of them. And I guess some are lucky enough
as well.
Yeah,
it's an addiction. It's that whole. It's hard to imagine both of them guys have performed in front of over 100,000 people, all screaming your name, all of them hanging off your every move.
Yeah, but they haven't played in
It's hard
Craven
to
in
give up.
Skipton, have they, on a Friday night?
Well, sorry, yeah, maybe you don't. Maybe you do know.
I'm Matty.
We can both relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah,
You were there as well,
it's,
but
it's just that
break into
I
rhythm
was,
of the
yeah.
dancer.
yeah.
it is. I can see why they do find it hard to give that up, but
Like
yeah,
any performer, though, isn't it? It's must be hard. But then they've made a lot of money that you'd think they could just go and enjoy life, wouldn't you?
If everything else feels flat compared to that buzz in the ring,
Yeah.
can you?
No.
I mean, look at Edge. Wrestling nearly killed Edge, and they managed to last nearly 10 years away from it, but he's still come back, chasing that dragon.
Mm.
It's a scary thing.
Yeah.
But no, I do remember I was very excited that Ultimate Warrior was in WCW. And I think it was just as they were starting the decline, and I thought this could be it. This could turn them around and really push them over the edge. And then, yeah, it was another good example of having something and not knowing what to do with it. If they'd have stuck in like they did with Goldberg, short and sweet matches, I think they could have made some more money there and maybe get another 6 months.
Should have left him where he was, left his legacy alone.
Absolutely.
Well,
absolutely.
What time are we on, Batch? I think we might be time for bed.
Yeah, I think we should look at wrapping it up. So, yeah, massive thank you, Mai. It's been really enjoyable going down memory lane. Some more
thank
WCW.
you so much. Yeah.
Been very nostalgic. I'm going to get straight on YouTube and look up some more matches.
Me too.
Yeah, definitely. And upset myself at how good WCW could still have been if they'd have stuck around.
Yeah.
Just drinking yourself into a stupor till 5 in the morning.
I mean, that's nothing new, but I'll do watching WCW for a change.
Wrestling this time, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, Matt, thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a joy.
Thank you very much for having me as well. It's been surreal having listened to you every week, and it's been a pleasure getting involved. Thank you.
Oh, great to have you on, Matty. Thank you,
Pleasure's ours. Thank you, pal.
And everyone else, stay tuned, and we'll see you next week.
Coming soon.
Yeah, episode 3 of the podcast coming soon, and keep listening to the radio as well.
Yeah.
Bye.
Right, I'm not going to stay too long because it'll extend my editing time. But thanks, Matty. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been so much fun. Like, there's so much stuff popping into my head that
it just sends you on work mode.
You've got to edit it. Yeah.
Let's see your hair in the light then. I couldn't really make it out earlier.
Okay, let's have a look.
That is awesome. You could be in army with that.
But then, like, the other side doesn't match. Like,
love it.
So
yeah, but
whenever I go out, I wear a hat.
But from the front, you look fine.
Yeah. On the front, it looks like I've just got hair on the top of my head. Like, I look like one of the Rugrats, like the Phil and Lil. They just got hair there and
nice.
You know that T-shirt?
You've got two sides. You've got like party mat and work mat.
I'm ready. Yeah, for the Zoom calls.
I think I prefer this side. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to wait another 4 months and grow it back there.
Yeah. All right, dude. Well, take care and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you, and you too.
And you,
Batch. Again. And I've been so enjoying looking at that background as well.
Yeah.
It pretty much looks like the one from the N64 game.
It does, doesn't
I think it is, mate. I couldn't find the real one. This is definitely from a game.
You didn't talk about the game, did you?
That's all right. Maybe you can have another episode sometime.
Save it for next time,
bits.
All right. I'll see you both soon.
All right. I'm on my way to bed now.
Catch you
See you later if I can figure out how to X.
He's done it.
He's figured it out.
Has he? Or is
I think
he just
so.
muted?
Oh, no, he just muted himself.
He'll be on it all night.
Sorry, there's a button I have to press here. I'm going to press it now.
No, it's all right, mate. See you later, mate.
See ya.
Bye.